Today is the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our Gospel text is Matthew, chapter 25, verses 1 through 30. Parable of the maidens who are waiting for the bridegroom. Now, parables are not explicit articulations of dogma or rules or moral imperatives. They are stories. They appeal to our imagination. If we want to understand a parable, we must become part of it. Parables are instruments of encounter. To know what Jesus is saying here, and there are innumerable possibilities in that. To know what Jesus is teaching us here, each of us has to enter the parable and experience that encounter. We must become part of the plot. So in this parable, can you feel the excitement, the joy? Can you feel perhaps the anticlimax when the bridegroom doesn't turn up on time? And when there's a shout, he's here at midnight. The new experience, maybe for some they were asleep or a bit drowsy, maybe for some were wide awake. And then there are those who didn't bring enough oil. What are they like? What are they experiencing? What's it like to not have enough oil? Let's reflect on that. I would suggest that all of us, sometime in our life, probably many times if the truth be told, we discover we don't have enough oil. For example, have you ever been caught in a situation where you have to sit an exam? You realize you really haven't done enough preparation. Maybe because you couldn't, maybe because you didn't. Or you let people down because of something you omitted. There are any number of experiences of failure and disappointment. Discoveries of when we don't have enough oil. They're not pleasant moments, however. They can be revelatory. They can be life-giving moments. Apart from anything else, they can tell us a fundamental and very simple truth. There's some things in life you can't borrow. You either got it or you haven't. For example, virtue. You can't borrow virtue. You either got it or you haven't. Take, for example, the experience of goodness, which is demanded of us so often in our encounters with people in our lives. Have you ever felt embarrassed at your lack when something was demanded of you, some measure of goodness? We're all vulnerable to being without oil. So what if we were to think of oil as a metaphor for grace? Grace, which is the source of all virtue, all goodness, all life. Grace is the presence of God with us, in us, and through us. It's there all the time for us. In the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 12, we hear the great promise, I'll be with you. We must assume that God is as good as that promise. Jesus reiterates it, the last words of Matthew's gospel. Remember, I'll be with you. There is the source of oil. Am I ready for that? Do I live in a way that opens me to grace? Grace, the oil that lights up the world. Recall the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says, seek and you shall find. Ask and you will be given. Knock and the door will be opened. We should think of these as things we do. They are rather expressions of what we are. We are made in the image and likeness of God. We are an asking. We are a knocking. We are a searching. We can't avoid it. It's what we are as creatures of God, the eternal, the perfect. Open yourself. Be what you are. Receive the oil that lights up your life and the lives of those around you. The readiness asked of us then is not for me to do something, but rather for God to do something. For God to act in me. Am I ready to be the place where God will light a fire in this world, that the fire of the Holy Spirit will be announced through my very being? Am I ready for the love that set fire to a bush in the desert? Am I ready? God comes to us. Jesus is with us in the ordinary moments of every day. Jesus wears the garments of ordinariness. Those garments may at times prove uncomfortable to us. We might resist them. We may be afraid of them. Be ready. Be ready to be surprised by grace. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know the time, the day, the hour.